Simon, I'm dying to go to. Oh, we're on live.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to go to the toilet, but it doesn't matter now because
straight away. We said we were only going to do half an hour, so if you can hold it in for that. Otherwise, us professionals have a bucket.
100%. What I'll do, Simon, is I'm going to plug in a better mic because I want you guys. I know how important brand is to you and quality. So
brand and quality. I think you've got the wrong podcast here, Tom.
I'm wrong.
The other guys.
An hour. This one's, that's the other one.
Yeah. There are other podcasts, we believe, but we don't like to talk about Andy Overman, Luke, and Stephen. So
the boys, yes. So can I ask you what time is it there?
7:30. So you've it's fair to say me and David are out night owls, and our 5 a.m. club is going to bed just before then. So you've done really well here. This is exceptional. But you're joining us late, I know, over there. So thank you very much, and everyone who's going to be following really appreciates it. So thanks once more.
So can I ask firstly to both of you, David and Simon, can I ask, like, life is from a health perspective and from a commercial perspective, is life like it's okay?
Yeah, I think it's really, it's really picked up, no doubt about it. First couple of weeks, everyone was in the headlamps, and, there was a lot of people who just weren't getting through that until they had their own time to do it. There was a demographic who were, not willing to go down without a fight, and so they were always doing it. And then, to be honest, there was a smaller minority who saw this as an opportunity, either an opportunity to get stuff done, reimagine their businesses, or seize market share from agents that literally, Tom, I don't know whether it's the same over there, had seemingly shut up shop and weren't really doing anything for the public with existing or new clients. So we I've got the other website. It's been our busiest time of the year. So I think now the last few weeks, people are just getting on and really making the most out of it. As I said, as much as you can do from a terrible thing like a pandemic.
Yeah. I think you've pretty much covered, the behaviour and attitudes of most of the people in Australia and New Zealand that work in the real estate sector. It's been a little bit, for me, guys, it was a little bit like things were good here because we'd had a federal election and the market was booming and everyone was making money. And then around March 9, March 10, 11, it's like you're on a super freeway and you're driving along and life is good. And then all of a sudden you see, some roadworks ahead and it says, slow down. And what's happened is you've slowed down all of a sudden, which was out of your control. But what happened, I noticed with a lot of real estate agents, is that they slowed down and they thought, okay, this is a permission for me not to do anything. I'm stopping my car. But in reality, a lot of the good real estate agents, the best ones, they sort of thought, okay, yes, I've slowed down, but I'm not going to go into a coma. And there is a heap of people in real estate in Australia and New Zealand that are basically treating this as if it's been an induced coma by the government and there's nothing that you can do about it, right? And I don't even know whether some of these people are going to ever wake up out of that coma, right? Yeah.
So Tom, I mean, talking about that, you've got some agents, particularly some that I've spoken to, where, let's face it, the market's not for everybody. I know for you guys over there, it's been a tough few years getting to where you are now, and we've got some agents who kind of, because the pause button has been hit, they lose momentum, but it's also given them time to think about where they are in their life and whether or not real estate is for them as a whole, or whether there's something else they can be doing. So very quickly, being in lockdown, with spending time with their families, having more time to think about things. And it's a bit of an echo chamber, to be honest, Tom, because you're not getting out and seeing people, so you're not really getting challenged by other opinions. there are a lot of people that are saying that they're not coming back to the industry once we reopen. There's a lot of recruitment experts that we've spoken to. They've heard from people that all of a sudden have been quite happy for many years in a particular role. They're now waking up and deciding that they want something else. What advice would you give to an agent that is perhaps teetering on that edge? They might not make it back. What can you say that would sort of reinvigorate them and get them back on track?
Well, the first thing is, I would say, David, is don't believe your own thinking when you're fearful or anxious. You shouldn't believe that thinking, because it's not logical thinking. It's thinking that is very emotion-based. And a lot of the emotions that people have felt in the last couple of months are emotions that I would put in the negative basket. They catastrophize. So I would say number one is, don't believe everything you think if you're under panic, anxiety, in chaos. The second thing is, get practical about it. Listen, if real estate isn't for you, think about this. It's not the real estate sector that's only been impacted. I mean, they're not lining up 10 deep to give people jobs to work for British Airways anymore. Yeah. Chances, right? So it's not like you're going to have a heap of options. Hey, I'm not going to do, estate agency. I'm going to go off. Like there's not going to be a million jobs in hospitality. There's not going to be a million jobs in tourism. And quite frankly, if you're in real estate, chances are that you haven't got yourself that equipped that you can be doing too many other things. And you definitely won't be putting on a jersey on for Tottenham when the EPL starts, because you're probably not a good football player. So you might have to make a decision that you're going to choose this time to say, hang on a second, how decent am I as an estate agent? Is the problem the profession, or is the problem me? Have I actually treated this as if this was me playing for Tottenham? Or have I treated this as if I was serious and I'd gone all out to become a pro? So part of it is to have a practical perspective and look in the mirror and say, have I given this enough? Have I given this everything I've got? If at the end of it, it is still overwhelming, I think what you've got to do is plan the escape. You don't just wake up and say, okay, here's my new career. You've got to plan the escape. But my personal view, and I'm one of the few people in real estate education in Australasia that has actually ran a real estate company and worked during recessionary periods that go back to the 80s. And all I can say to you is this: it is a golden opportunity. Why? I'll tell you why. Because it sounds like a cliche. You hear people say, oh, I built my business during the recession, this and that. But realistically, let's look at the practicality about why it is an opportunity. Because what you basically said, David, is what a lot of people, estate agents, are thinking. And that is, I might get out. Many of those do go out. That's a good thing, because when you look at the mathematics, which is number of agents per listings, all of a sudden the equation looks good, because you've got less competitors. Less competitors and more properties per estate agent means higher commissions. And that's a good thing as well. Yeah. Then you begin to look at, hey, more listings. Economic downtimes affect vendors, and whether they sell because financial reasons or divorces, because we clearly know in Wuhan, as a case study, the divorce rate, or people inquiring about having a separation, has gone up 35%, which essentially says, and it happens for the reasons that you said, David. People are at home. There was already a fracture in the relationship. And then you're spending 2 months with people, and then you begin to think, hey, is this the way I want to live my life? And I've got to tell you, for someone that's gone through illness, like one of the things in cancer, they give you social work and counseling, one of the things they touch on when you recover is marriage counseling. And the reason they give you marriage counseling is that cancer survivorship has a high divorce rate. And the reason is that when you recover, you reevaluate, is this how I want my life? So
all your decisions,
any major chaos is going to create people to actually reflect on their life on this planet.
So can I just ask you a question there, Tom? I mean, obviously you've talked about this before and it's fairly well documented. So when you originally got your first diagnosis, you had this moment where your life and your feelings about your life were in a very different place, and you come out of that illness and that recovery period, you sort of rebuilt yourself, not just physically, but in terms of your mindset, the way that you lived your life, in terms of your daily routine, your exercise, the whole thing. I mean, we've all watched that series Breaking Bad. He chose to do something far more criminal, but you chose to do something extremely good with your life at that moment. So talk to us about that.
And I can tell you, it happened. I still clearly remember this change happened pretty much in a 15-minute episode. It was in a. So I've had cancer 3 times. This happened in 2006. That's when I made my big shift the first time. So I was sitting at a chemo ward. I'd got off the phone and I'd had an argument with someone, and then I put the phone down. And I had another cancer patient next to me said, sounds like that was a shit phone call. And he said something along the lines, is business bad? And I looked at him and I said, no, everything's bad. And he goes, wow. And then for some reason on a piece of paper, David, I wrote out everything in my life that wasn't good. And I began to accept things aren't good. My health was shit. My finances were shit. My relationships were shit. There was pretty much a gloomy picture. And I still remember that day I walked out, went and bought an exercise book from a convenience store where the hospital was downstairs, walked into a cafe, and I pretty much wrote out a life philosophy plan. It was about getting my fitness right. It was actually getting the people around me. I decided to delete some people and increase the frequency of others. I then sat down and said to myself, what am I like in the current job I've got? I gave myself a 6 out of 10. And I said, this is what I'd look like as a 9 out of 10. And then what I did is I factored in that I was going to make an effort that every day I would do something that would drive me closer to it. And I did it for 30 days. Then at around day 45, by coincidence, I got good news that the cancer treatment had been working. And then all of a sudden, you have this momentum, good news, more momentum, and it's still a defining day. That phone call, sitting there where I dropped the bullshit, I let go of ego, I let go of excuses, and I accepted the truth. Things were fucked. And from there, I was able to move forward. And I've got to tell you, I haven't really gone back since then. That was 14 years ago. I mean, I have, when I say gone back, I have gone back there for treatment. I've been back there 2 times, you know, and hopefully never go back there again.
So Tom, you talk about, I've heard you use the phrase, and I'll probably misquote it because I've got a terrible memory, but you know, life sometimes gives you gifts badly wrapped. And that in particular, you know, for anyone going through this lockdown, and I mean just the lockdown without any of the illness, really needs to think about that kind of thing, isn't there? About what's important really, and that this is nothing in comparison. Being asked to stay inside is relatively easy, isn't it? And you've got to focus on the big things, what other people are going through there, and just get on with it.
So Simon, you've rephrased it pretty accurately, and that is some of the best gifts in life come badly wrapped. And let me give people a bit of like on the surface, there could be a girl or guy that watches this now or watches it on replay and says, you know what, that sounds really easy to say, but right now I'm sitting here, money's tough, I'm depressed because I'm inside. Actually, there's no gift here. Well, let me tell you a bit of a template that can help you shift your mind. You've got to forget about the event, COVID, and you've got to focus your response. You've got to forget about what's missing and focus on what's available. You've got to forget about what you've lost and you've got to focus on what's the opportunity. And all of a sudden, if you ask different questions, your mind will move to those answers. So part of it is, hey, maybe the issue is that I've got to sit there and try and snap out of the way I'm looking at this. And it all starts with you forgetting about your difficulties and start focusing about your progress. But for anyone that's watching this in the UK right now, Simon, that's doing it hard, my biggest advice is narrow your focus. What I mean by that, don't think about the next 3 months, 6 months, or the future. Think about the next 8 hours. How do I make this Friday a cracker? How do I make this Friday a cracker? Because if you've got the ability to narrow your focus, it'll stop you from catastrophizing and estimating and forecasting a future which will relatively be wrong. And psychologists seem to say that for most people, they will forecast a future which is more pessimistic than realistic. So what do? Narrow the focus and say, what's a good day look like today? Simple. I'll walk outside, get a bit of fresh air. I'll hit the phones and I'll start ringing up people that I haven't spoke to for a long time and over communicate to the market. What's the next thing I can do? I'll go on to Udemy, do a course and learn a little bit about video and social marketing. And you know what happens? You have a good day, you have another good day, 2 days. You have another good day, before you know it, you've had a good week. And 80% of winning is just beginning. So I urge anyone watching this, just start. Don't worry about the 30th day. Worry about today.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think there's two things there, Tom. First of all, it's that, that short-term focus where most people think about how do I get to a doubling of turnover or getting income, and they forget all the micro steps you just focused there. And the other thing is, and we've spoke about this at the fantastically named Sandsfest, we were talking about the difference with sort of UK agents, and I think we both agreed that too many agents over here wear too many hats. They don't specialise in the way that you're your best agents. I saw you speaking to Tanya from O'Brien, who's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these. The reason I found out about you was watching your old interviews with people like Matthew Dawan again from O'Brien, and those guys just had laser focus. They weren't having to deal with with all the buyer the database side of things. They had effective business units that were supporting them in terms of taking away all of those, what would you call those administrative, less dollar productive activities, and keeping it focused. And I think one of the biggest issues with UK real estate is we do ask too many people to spin too many plates.
Well said. And I reckon I've been spoilt because at an early age, working for Rupert Murdoch in my role in media, one of the things that was drilled in us is that when you lead people, you make sure that you manage and you keep them accountable on their singular focus. Because the minute you sit down and have a one-on-one and they start talking, I've got this in the pipeline, I've got this issue over here, I'm doing this over here, you would just say, listen, I don't want to know that. What I want to know is this is your singular focus. This is what you've got to do. how did you go with that versus last week? And the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And Simon, the main thing is your core responsibility. And in Australian real estate and New Zealand real estate, it is to find people in your market that are going to list with you. That is what your core job is. Everything else seems to work out.
We've got a question here from Tom, who you were kind enough to respond to yesterday. Tom McGee, fantastic. Following on from kind of what we've just been talking there. And he asked you, if you were starting from scratch in a new area, what are the actions that you would take to both hit the ground running and also create sustainable success?
The first thing I would do is I would go and I would find out who the strongest estate agents were in that market. And I would get a gun and I'd kill them. I'd want to just get rid of them, right? Right? I want to get...
You have to put something along the bottom just saying the views...
Tom is not actually condoning murder right now, okay? This isn't real.
Correct. So Tom, by the way, that's Tom. That's the Tom that wanted to be the Tom Ferry, Tom Panos, Tom McGee. We set up this three-man business across the world.
You have no idea. You have no idea how happy Tom McGee is going to be mentioned in that holy trinity of Tom Panos, Tom McGee, and Tom Ferry.
Okay. Well, Tom, let's get into reality. We ain't setting up a business at the moment, the three of us. So let's focus on what are we going to do in a real estate perspective. Let's focus on it. The first thing I would do is I would make sure that I would become the Google of the market, and I would find out every property that is sold, how long they took to sell, every property that's on the market, everything that matters about that area, anything to with government legislation, local businesses, school zone, everything that matters. I would actually become BIW, best in the world in product knowledge. Right. Because if you can't beat people on experience, you can beat them on product knowledge. The second thing I would do is I would go off and find the people that are the influencers or the shot callers in that area. It could be a businessman, it could be a lawyer, it could be a, finance broker, it could be a developer. And what I would do is I would stick to them like a stamp sticks on an envelope, because these people here might not do business with you, but they will refer business to you. I would do that. The next thing I would do is I would try and meet 100 people per month that own real estate in that area. Because if I met 100 people a month and I entered them into a contact management system and I began a permission-based relationship, at the end of a year, that would be 1,000 people. Would it be more than that? So you would have 1,000 people. I would do that. The next thing I would do is I would then be calling these people and giving them information that was relevant to them, and I would slowly be brainwashing them that I am the go-to person for property in this marketplace. The next thing I would be doing is I would actually go off and I'd become semi-media company, and I would produce content. And that content would be not ego-driven, but useful vendor-driven. And I would provide content in the marketplace that helps people understand their area and values better. And the next thing I would do is I would find people, if you're lucky enough in an office, that are the better ones. And I would sit there and I would just sponge in terms of information and learn exactly what they're doing. And I would then be patient, because there's a thing in a state agency called delay gratification. And delay gratification says, I'm going to do these things, but I'm not going to get an immediate result. So Tom, as you're listening to this, let me tell you, you've got to stop keeping score with every activity you're doing, because things happen gradually, then suddenly. And what happens is when things are happening gradually, you don't see those benefits. All of a sudden, it's roughly 2 to 3 years, people start calling you. I've seen this. Oh, you've been sending me this. Oh, you've been calling me. So I would say be patient. It's a 2-year project minimum, and then you've set yourself up to have a good life.
So Tom, just on that, when you started those your videos, I remember one of the questions you always asked at the end of all those experts was, look, you know, you've got somebody who started off year 1, year 2, you know, is earning less than $200,000. How do they go to the next step? And it's basically hard coding that, isn't it? The work you're doing now is not yielding the results for this year. It's for the future. And it's why so many poor agents who just fight over the realestate.com or the Rightmove leads and don't think about it are just, they're in completely the wrong place, aren't they?
Well said. I like that word. I'm going to write that down, hard code, because that word now has been plagiarized by me and will be used by me.
Okay, don't do the same as you did with data. That's all we're saying. Do still call it hard code, because you've got data and auctions, and they're difficult for us to get our heads around.
Right. Okay. So data is as well, is it?
Data. We're data. It sounds a bit posh, but yeah, we call it data.
Data. Okay. So, look, the interesting thing is this, Simon. When I interview or have interviewed the really high successful agents,
yeah,
often they themselves have forgotten what they did when they first started, which is part of the problem, because in many ways, I'm at fault, because I ask a question to someone that's been doing it for 10 years. The truth is, they're not doing now what they did then. They're running an attraction business that is very much about magnetism. They suck all the stuff. They got profile. But when they started, that wasn't their model. Their model was a prospecting-based model. Yeah. And the prospecting-based model was all about the chase and hustle. And you were pretty much a Manila the phone center from Manila. That's what it's like in the early stages, right? So in many ways, these real estate agents go off and say, yeah, I'd be doing this. They don't do that themselves. But what, if they really thought about it, what they would say is this: for the first 2 to 3 years, you have to sow, because the day you sow is not the day you reap. Yeah. You've got to be a sower in the early stages, right? And later on, you know what? You get a lot of free kicks. Simon, you're sitting around, someone rings you up, hey, you sold me cousin's place, can you pop around? You're just getting all these leads. The truth is, none of them want to admit it, but the top agents, they don't do a lot of prospecting these days, right? They don't want to say it, but the truth is, do you think that they're getting on the phone, calling strangers, interrupting people that don't want to talk to them? Nah, they're normally answering the phone saying, I'll fit you in at 10 o'clock, see you then. Can you do 10:30? No, I can't. 10 o'clock, that's the time, right? That's the way
it goes to a scarcity model there, Tom, doesn't it? And one of the greatest assets and marketing tools you can't have me right now. You know, there is only so much of me to go around, and that inevitably makes people want you more, doesn't it?
100%. 100%. Like, think about that for a concept. Someone rings you up to do a second inspection on a property, and you, the estate agent, say, oh yeah, no problems. I've got the next 6 years available. What time do you want to have a look at it? That's quite different than saying, hey, let me come back to you in half an hour. That may not be available anymore. There was someone having some activity on that property. I'll call you back. totally different feeling for the buyer, totally different feeling. Scarcity matters. And that's why I felt so privileged to come out to that Russian nightclub across the road from the Holiday Inn with you after Sandfest, because the way they made it look like is only special people are going to walk in here, right? Only special people are going to walk in
Only
here.
special people crawl out of there, Tom. That's the
Yes, yes. And I can, listen, I walked out at around 1 o'clock, right? But I got a funny feeling that there was a few people that crawled out.
I can imagine which Larrikin you're referring to.
Tom, yeah, you referred to me on the last podcast as a larrikin, and as I always do when I don't understand something, I pretended I knew what you meant. So I went Googling afterwards. Let me just share my screen now. I went to have a look at what larrikin actually meant, because it's not a UK. And there was a couple of definitions. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Is a boisterous, often badly behaved young man, or a person with apparent disregard for convention, a maverick. Now, the first
Okay, that's a very, good. Whatever dictionary you're using, they're spot on. Good dictionary.
Okay, which one was it? And thank you for calling me a young man.
Okay, let's have another bit of an autopsy of these words. A boisterous, often behaved young man. Okay, well, that's not far off. A person with apparent disregard in convention. Okay, I've got to tell you, probably closer to number 2. But if someone used number 1, I'd say, yeah, that sounds like him. Yep, that's the guy.
I'll take it.
So Tom, I'm conscious of time, but we always said that this sort of crisis, or any kind of crisis, especially a global one, it sees the best of us and it sees the worst of us. So you get all of this coming out. At least here in the UK, agents, I think the better agents anyway, kind of took away the focus from hard sales, and they realized that, now was the time where the community sort of needed supporting. The lockdown here, I think, is a lot more stringent than the lockdown you guys have experienced. I think you guys have really done well with it. But over here, where the restrictions, I mean, we're seeing great initiatives. I mean, we've got a friend, Susanna, who is posting care packages out for people who can't get their normal supplies, etc. So what are you seeing in the Australian market in terms of what agents are doing to support their communities?
Okay, so let's go through and see some of the acts that I thought to myself, wow, that's nice. Well, so there was an agent of mine that randomly would go off and leave some essential packages, some toilet paper, which was a shortage for a while. Was toilet paper shortage in the UK as well? Or was it just
people fighting over it? Yeah.
Right.
It says something about mankind when the first thing that we all go for is a toilet paper.
Well, David, the problem with, I was saying to someone today, he said to me, the toilet roll companies did really well out of it. I said, not really, because it's not like you're going to use extra toilet paper. It's not like you're like at the end of the day, all you're doing is you've bought it and you'll be using it in June in 2027, right? Right. It's not like you're going to use extra toilet paper that month. But what happened, David, is that there was a couple of agents that what they would do is they would get toilet paper, hand wash, some long life milk, and they would go off and they would just put it at the front of people's front door, people that were generally over 65 years of age, and they're saying, hope you find this useful. Not nice act. But for me, one of the nicest things of all that came out of it is there was a group of real estate agents that had a database of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and they'd never really spoke to them. They always felt guilty. They knew they were there. And it was a simple, hi, it's Tom here from the real estate. Firstly, I want to apologize. I should have been in touch earlier. And now that I have a little bit more time, it's made me think, I should have spoken to you earlier. Can I ask you, is there any help or support I can give you at this time? All of a sudden, it was these calls that should have been happening prior to COVID-19 that began happening. And that's a nice act in itself, David. And then you hear about, some of the other things that were really good was driving, asking people, sending out things into your database, saying, listen, I've got time at the moment. I'm mobile. Would you like me to go off and do your shopping for you, right? And acts like this. I remember Gary Vaynerchuk, when I went and did the ARIC interview with Gary Vaynerchuk, I remember at the time, he said something which has sat with me well, and that was, there are times when business is hard, and even if you're positive, you can't swim against the tide. The market's the market. So what do? If you can't make a sale, at least you build your personal brand. Because when you can make a sale, your brand's gonna look bigger than theirs. So you're probably gonna pick up a few percentage points in market share.
It's very
and
I remember the interview with Gary, and you're often known as the king of tonality, and he was kind of the velocity vocalist, isn't he? Because in the way he controls speed when he talks, and that energy is just absolutely incredible. And I know you enjoyed that because you were pissing yourselves laughing through all of those interviews in the build-up to ARIC, weren't you? That must have been a great experience.
Simon, I still remember it because John McGrath, because the deal was I go to New York, which I wanted to go, right? And it's really interesting because when I accepted it, I was in chemotherapy and I didn't know whether I was going to survive it. But anyway, I did survive it, and then I ended up going to New York, not John. And I went to New York, and we had sourced through Q&As and through market research the 11 questions that were going to be asked by me to Gary Vaynerchuk that would then be produced at ARIC. So we had actually gone through a methodical process. So I get over to New York, and I go over and I do the interview, and there's 11 questions there. And as soon as I finish the interview, John McGrath rings me up. How did it go, mate? How is he? What's he like? Good. And he goes, did you get to be able to ask all 11 questions? I said, no, John, I didn't get the 11. And he goes, did you get through most of them? I said, John, I'll be honest with you. I don't think any questions have been answered because I didn't get a chance to ask any questions. And he goes, what? And I said, you have to see it. I said, I'll Dropbox it and send it. It was weird. It was like I walked in and he just started speaking, right? And he spoke and spoke and spoke, and I didn't ask a question. But it ended up being, believe it or not, it got ranked at ARIC that year, and he wasn't even there. He wasn't in the room. It got ranked the #1 presentation, and he wasn't in the room. It was a video.
I remember, and it was amazing. And I think, look, ARIC has been outstanding for, having, I mean, let's face it, the president of the United States, I seem to remember many moons ago, didn't he?
We had Donald, he wasn't
president then, but he was.
No, he wasn't president. Oh. He wasn't a president then. But we've had him, Steve Covey, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Tom,
we've had good people.
One of the most, it's one of the recorded ARIC speeches that I always go back to. It's from a few years ago. It's a fellow called Bob Wolf, from New York or California, I think he is actually. And I just find his brand of humor and the way that he addressed the audience. He famously walks around with a stack of papers and he pulls them out one by one, doesn't he? And throws them away as he's talking.
Spot on. You're spot on. That's his approach.
He really is an inspiration, and I think there's a lot we can learn from him. last time we spoke to our friends from the EA podcast, they said that they would like Simon and I to interview Bob Wolf one day. So next time you speak to Bob Wolf,
Pass on the message.
tell him we want to see him in town. I actually think that he's not well enough known on the international on an international level.
He's not. Like, I walked in. I walked into an elevator once, and in Australia on the Gold Coast. It wasn't at Arrak. It was at another time, and I've sat in the elevator, and he said, "Hi, Tom, nice to meet you." I didn't recognize him because he's a bit unassuming. Goes,
Yeah.
"I'm Bob Wolf." And then I looked at him, I thought, shit, it is here. And he gave me his card. And what happened then? Typical Tom Panos style, never stayed in contact, right? Right?
Well, I'm sure he'll be glad to hear from you now, you know.
Tom?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Tom, I mean, I'm conscious of time, and as usual, you're being very generous with it. We've had a question here, and a bit like your conversation, we're not getting through all the questions that we would do, but somebody was asking the what would day one look like? Nick Cheshire said, what would day one look like? I'm going to just do a follow-up as well, coming out of lockdown. You're helping to shape that, aren't you? And maybe you could just spend a bit of time talking about, I know, the program that you're putting in place, going on the 21 days, isn't it, that you're
Yes.
about to launch? Would you mind just sort of introducing that, and then maybe saying what that day one looks like when we come out of lockdown?
Yes, I will, and I'm going to see if I can get something here that'll help me. Okay, so is the question, Simon, what would day one look like when?
Yeah, just the first day we come out of lockdown. So the first day we're
right
there, and I'm obviously hoping to set that up by somebody having sat through your 21-day program. Kind of probably what would they do differently?
Okay, so maybe I'll look. The 21-day program starts on Monday, and I know that this is coming across as an infomercial, and I'm not the salesy type, Simon, but I do give a win.
I am. So let me.
And I like that.
This isn't you doing it. Everyone. Look at the brand, Tom. That I'm not shy about coming forwards. I'm selling for you. Everyone should be all over this, so you can feel you're fine. Just
okay. Perfect. So what it is I've got thousands and thousands of gym members, and what would happen is all the content that I've got in there had nothing to do with COVID-19. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to happen. No one was expecting it to happen, right? So I'd never produced content regarding a COVID-19. So all of a sudden, in the last month, we were just getting inundated. We were going crazy. So I've lost my speaking gigs because I can't travel. And then all of a sudden, my online business is, we got people saying, what do I do here? Where do I find that in the gym? And I came to realize I simply didn't have a program in there regarding COVID-19. So I said to Susan and our other VA, I said, listen, we need to sit down and actually address these problems. So what I did is I wrote out a 21-day program, and I just write some of the things. Yeah. How to qualify buyers in this marketplace. How to use scripts and dialogues to handle a low offer. How to get people from your CRM and bring them onto the market. How to have a listing presentation that doesn't overprice to win business. Because the truth is, Simon, if you list properties now at the wrong prices, you're going to be an antique store. You're going to have stock sitting there, right? Yeah. Right? Nothing's going to happen. How to create sales when there's no urgency. So I created 21 important headings. Then I created PowerPoint presentations and video content addressing it. And then I said, this is going to the gym members. And then Susan goes, but what about all these other people that are asking it that aren't gym members? And I said, well, you know what? They're not a gym member. They're not getting it. And she goes, just give it to them. And I said, yeah, but then if you're a gym member, you think to yourself, why do I pay for my gym membership if this guy's giving stuff away? So I came up with a model, which was, even if you're not a gym member, you can have this for $97, which is is about £50 it's roughly half. It's about £50. And it's a 21-day program. And I got good people in there. I got people like Tom Ferry, you know, and from the US, and, you know, and McGrath and all these other great people. And then what they do is 2 times a day, they tune in with me and they can get it on replay. And my view is that you're going to come out and be a black belt psychologically, because I do think you can't be weak now, because you are going to go from the heights of exhilaration to the depths of depression in 24 hours. I accept that. So you do need to be mentally strong. And then there's all these tactical, you know, do this here. Oh, I've got a vendor that's just overpriced. They won't listen. Great. Here's a trick. Put them in your car when you can, right? Put them in your car, then go for a drive and say, what did that sell for? I don't know. How much? Have a guess. £500,000? No, 420. Let's go to the next one. So there's techniques that you can go off and educate. So I've taken all this content, and I'm pretty certain people are going to think to themselves, there must be a trick here. He's charging £50 because there must be some sort of hook. There is no hook. What I've done is I've produced the content. I'm giving it to my gym members. I'll give it to you guys. And if I pick up a bit of extra income, fantastic. When I come to the UK, we can go to that bar in Russia and I'll buy the drinks. It's a Russian bar, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is.
What's it called? What's it called?
It's called Novichok, which sounds disturbingly close. We had a phase of Russian agents poisoning some of our people over here, and it sounded like the thing that they were poisoning us with. But yeah, it was a different experience, wasn't it? I think we were there with Sean Newman and Sam, weren't we? So Tom, that my whole career I've been a property magpie, and I've stolen phrases and pretty much I've ever done. But what you just said there is, I'll repeat back to you your own phrase. That's absolute gold dust. You know, that really is those hands-on tips, because that's what I think people are looking for. They understand some of the generality, but they're looking for specifics as well. So where do they find it out, Tom? Do they just...
If they go to realestategym.com.au, there's an icon there that says 21 day. They click on there and they can buy, and it's going to close. So we start, people watching this in the UK now, it's Friday. We start here Monday, which is in around 3 days. So you've got 3 days to join. And you know what? Like, if you can't join, it's all good, because you'll still, you know, people follow me on social media, or you'll go to YouTube. But all I'll say to people, you know, my experience, Simon, is this: all storms eventually come to an end, right? And I just want people to accept you've probably made less money, accept things have been shittier than normal. For me, I got to tell you, they haven't been. I don't like talking about it, because I do, and I hate it when I see these celebrities get on Instagram saying we're all in it together when they're living in a $50 million house, right? Because you're not all in it together, and your bank's not in it together with you. For many people, they're not in it together with anyone. They're in it on their own, and they're doing it hard. But from my perspective, Simon, I've got to tell you, as a problem, this hasn't hit my radar screen. I make references, mate. Mate, you got to understand, you're talking to a guy that's had nearly 300 chemo and radiation sessions, right? You're talking to a guy that's, you know, lost his best friend, who's my brother, you know, at age 42. This stuff here to me has been, hey, Tom, you're in your studio, right? You can't go out and sit in a cafe. You can't go out to the pub. You can't go out to Novichok. What'd you call that place?
Novichok. Yeah.
Novichok. You can't go to Novichok and meet a girl. And even if you went out there, you probably wouldn't meet a girl anyway. So it makes no difference for you, right? You're just staying in your studio. You're staying put right here. And what you're going to do is you're just going to keep putting this stuff on your hand, right? And you're just going to go off and you're just going to keep putting it on. And even though you're not going to see anyone, chances are that you're not going to get anything anyway, but you're going to keep using it. And what have we been doing? Eating a bit of chocolate, right? We've got by. We're on the home stretch. I reckon. What do you reckon, guys?
Have you got fudge? Have you got? We have fudge.
Oh no, I love fudge. Yes, look at that.
Send them a fudge pack.
Fudge.
I love fudge.
So I've got to say, thank you so much for your time. You've massively gone over. You've almost done a full hour with us. It's amazing talking to you. We'll obviously put up the links and everything for your program. That sounds like an absolute no-brainer. David, you got anything to close?
To close, I wanted to ask you on a couple of your rants, and a couple of times you had your daughter on it. I think her name's Christina. You've obviously made a good living out of property, real estate. Would you encourage your kids to get involved in this industry? He's thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it. So I'm thinking about it. Dave, would I tell her go into real estate? Probably not. And the reason why is that she's not curious about it. She's not, like, I hear some parents that have got kids that are working in their business, and they tell me from a young age, they would want to come to an inspection with them, or they'd help them put a signboard up, and they say, I always wanted to do real estate. That hasn't been the case with my daughter. I've got two daughters. That hasn't been the case with both my daughters, right? They're not curious. And I've got a belief in my head. The way to succeed in life is you always get people to do stuff that they're curious in and fascinated. And the reason why is this: if they're fascinated and they like it, they spend a lot of time doing it. And if you spend a lot of time doing it, you get a lot of practice. And if you get a lot of practice, you become great at it. And it's only people that are great that live lucrative lives, whether it's in football, in tech, in social, in teaching, in any category. So the answer is probably no, because I don't see it, you know. She's far more obsessed. Like, chances are right now, she'll be like this. She'll be somewhere and she'll just be going like this, right? She's obsessed with what everyone's obsessed with, which
has she got you on TikTok yet?
Well, I'm not on TikTok. But I might go on there. I use social media. For me, it's a business tool, and I haven't been able. I mean, maybe I can monetize TikTok.
Your pal Gary Vaynerchuk would tell you that TikTok's where it's at. I think we're ready for a world where Tom Panos is doing a little bit of TikTok.
Are you guys on TikTok?
Yeah,
Simon's just started. Yeah.
But it won't surprise you, Tom. You know, I see business and personal as indivisible, because frankly, I've tried to divide them and I can't. So TikTok's quite a bit of fun there. So I want to be the first WhatsApp business. You know, the way you deal with your friends on WhatsApp. I want to. Yeah. If that's as you said, where you have fun and you engage, that's what I want Kerfuffle to be. So you'll either see that as a success or a massive failure.
Well, listen, I'll do it tonight. I'll go up and set up TikTok. Who owns TikTok? Is that owned by Facebook or anyone or not?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean it will be. I don't think anyone's got that has bought it yet. So
okay, because sometimes it's easy to set up a social media account if they're owned by the same ecosystem, Facebook and Insta.
I think they have logins. You know, those easy logins. Ask Susan. I know she's your guru, isn't it?
Forget Susan. Ask Christina. She'll sort that out for you straight away.
Yeah. Well, listen, I might do it. I mean, I have to tell you right now, Facebook is a great business tool. I like analytics. I like the fact that with Facebook you can actually do targeted versus spray and pray, right? I like that. The other platforms are slowly doing it. Facebook seems to be the best at being able to say, hey, see these people? Yeah. There's 7,000 of those in my database. I can whack them on the back of Facebook and I can target those people, even though there's no engagement from them. I'll make them engage because they're a warm relationship that's been migrated from CRM to Facebook. I like that. But anyway, guys, I hope that you're well. I hope that it's been useful for your audience. Stay healthy, Simon. It's good to see you. I promise Sanjay, I want to be back there soon. I mean, I was scheduled. I was going to take probably 3 months in Europe after Sanj Fest. It was in my mind, but what will I do now instead? I don't know. Just hang around.
As soon as you're over, we'll do Novichok again or somewhere else. We'll stay in touch. We'll love to catch up and stay safe. And we'll thanks very much for coming on today.
Thanks a lot,
Tom.
guys.
Cheers.
See you later, David.
See you soon. Bye bye.